Hello, and welcome to episode 4 of Cheat Code Radio. I am your host, Nicholas Downie, Assistant Editor-in-Chief of lordsofgaming.net. And as always, I'm joined by my good friend.
Hey guys, it's Ivan Siler, aka Anchorman V2 from the Multiverse Show, and together we're Cheat Code Radio.
It's an exciting week. We got Back for Blood this weekend. For those that want to play another, stylized FPS, X Defiance got a closed beta thing too. Lots and lots of stuff to play this weekend. So we're taking some time out to talk about the stuff that, happened this week and, answer your questions and, talk a little bit about everything. So I do believe we have to do poll results though from last week's show.
Correct, good sir, and we have some polls to go over. So the poll question we asked from last week. PlayStation 5 has finally revealed that SSD storage expansion is coming. Will you be upgrading? With the lowest voting amount with only 13%, hell yes. With the second one, no, who needs more games at 25%. And number one, with 63% of the vote, hell no. Oddly enough, that's weird. At least until they start, figure out something else, I guess. Maybe a better pricing or maybe different manufacturers. I don't know.
I definitely think pricing is the main thing, because I don't think when we start doing memory expansion on like Xbox One, PS4, I don't think they were quite this expensive. I feel like they were cheaper going in.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they were a little cheaper. I don't recall off the top of my head, at least. But I think it's either way. I think a lot of it has to do with mainly just the uncertainty factor, where it's like nobody knows, like, hey, is this actually going to be a good one for me?
Yeah.
Or is this going to brick my system?
Yeah, I think once it comes out of the beta phase and it's available to everyone, you'll see a lot more people upgrading and whatnot. Like, even with the Xbox storage expansion, when that launched, because I think that launched pretty close, if not same day as the Xbox Series X, and I didn't see a lot of people grabbing the memory expansion until much later, until other people kind of, demoed it a bit, so to speak. So I think everyone's just kind of in a wait and see mode right now to just, see what the upsides and downsides are. You brick your PlayStation 5, it's still pretty hard to get another one.
Yeah, we'll see. Well, I wouldn't say it's that bad. If it does brick it, I mean, well,
I don't think you could.
Here's an example. So, like, my roommate had his Series X didn't work after about a couple weeks. It was having issues, and like he sent it back, and they gave him a new one. So, I mean, yeah, but like if you put in like a third party proprietary thing, well, sorry, it's not proprietary. If you put in third party hardware, they're no longer responsible for it according to the language there.
Yeah.
So, So yeah, you can't really. You have to go and buy a new one, I guess. So
yeah, I think that's part of the reason some people. I can't say a lot of people because people will take that phrase out of context. But I think that's why some people are avoiding it for right now until that big liability disclaimer is not on the end. I understand it's hardware beta testing right now and everything else. And there seems to be tons of people on my timeline that are eager to upgrade and test it out and everything else. So I'll wait and see how they do with that. And I will continue to simply play and delete my games as I go.
all right. So we got a couple of questions we need to address because there's actually some pretty cool stuff here. All right. So first off, the first question we have for this evening. This is a two-parter question because we had two individuals who asked roughly the same kind of question. So first one comes from Perfect Shogun. Which game has the best fruit physics?
Fruit Ninja 3D. Or wherever the Xbox Connect Fruit Ninja game was, that one had the best fruit physics by a mile.
Yeah. You had my answer there, Fruit Ninja. But the more serious version of that question comes from Going Bananas Man. What do you guys think of people micro-examining games? For example, the Halo Fruit thing. Is it healthy to examine games to this degree? Um, I'll kick us off, I guess. No, so my whole thing with it is that they when a developer chooses to add an extra level of detail to something, especially if it's inconsequential and something nobody cares about,
Mm.
it's more just kind of like a bonus. But then at the same time, it's not really. I don't say it's a harm to like really look at the details of something, but I wouldn't say it should be the only sole factor driving console war discussions. I mean, we may be talking about fruit this time, but like the game I always go to as my go-to one was horse testicles in Red Dead Redemption 2. It was like, oh, if it's a hot atmosphere that you see the balls drop and they get bigger, but if it gets colder, they get smaller. And I'm like, that's such a crazy level of detail that nobody should care about. But yeah, it's really cool that they took that much time to actually do that. But
Yeah.
it doesn't change the game at all? No. Does it affect the game at all? No. Does it even noticeably change your immersion? No. Just
Yeah. Yeah, it feels like we've kind of hit this point where a lot of games look so good and play so well now that we kind of have to go into these micro details in order to, find something wrong or find something to complain about in terms of anything else. Because, like, I've never seen, like, people complain about micro details in a multiplayer game, like, ever, because there's so many multiplayer maps and everything else where this isn't done, or this doesn't break the way it should. Like, I'll use destructible cover as an example. Like, destructible cover in most games is very poorly done. There's very few games that do it really, really well, right? The games like Battlefield, and I think Rainbow Six Siege does a great job. But the thing is like, if your game runs really well and I have a lot of fun playing it, I really don't particularly care how your fruit breaks. And that kind of level of detail is like, let me put it this way. I am fine if a developer wants to go through and do all these small details, like the things we see with Naughty Dog games and Rockstar games, where it's like such a large amount of detail. Like, I remember playing Red Dead Redemption 2 and getting into the fight in town and just getting my ass beat and getting thrown through the mud, and my character's like muddy all over because he got tossed through mud. And I went, that's such a cool small detail. Like, he looks dirty as hell, and everything else. I was like, that's a really cool immersive detail. But ultimately, the immersion and the attention to detail really drove what they were trying to do with Red Dead Redemption 2. And I don't get that with games like Halo or anything else. So I don't really think there's something that 343 is doing wrong, and I don't think there's something Naughty Dog's doing wrong. Hell, even a Naughty Dog developer commented on the whole fruit thing and went, yeah, I really liked having, these high detailed pieces in the set work that I did in The Last of Us Part 2, but expecting that from everyone is ludicrous, basically.
Yep.
And it's just that general thing. Some developers are going to micromanage those nuances and some aren't. I don't think it necessarily makes it a good or a bad thing. I do think people hyper-focusing on what people do or don't do, though, is ultimately unhealthy.
Similar kind of thoughts. Like, it's actually what you brought up, Naughty Dog. You when you add a level of detail to something, you're doing it because you think that the player might actually encounter something like that.
Mm-hmm.
A great example is actually Last of Us Part 2. They have like real fruit physics. So like, if you destroy like a barrel, you'll see like the apples fall to the ground. Mm-hmm. And like, oh wow, and like they roll away in a natural way. However, if you try to shoot one of those apples, they don't explode.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, because the idea in that particular game is you're conserving ammo, you wouldn't waste a bullet on
on an apple.
On an apple.
Yeah.
So it's like, hey, players rarely, if ever, going to encounter this. There's no point in us doing it. Like, yeah, like if a player is accidentally shoots like a fruit stand, yeah, they might explode, but their focus is not going to be on the fruit itself. They're going to be focusing on the on the person they're shooting at.
Yeah, and to add on to that too, you know, that level of detail, it's risky when you make a super detailed game. That's why I kind of always tip my hat to like Naughty Dog and Rockstar, because when you do something super detailed all the time, when something isn't super detailed, it sticks out like a sore thumb. Like when I was playing The Last of Us Part 2, like 99.9% of the time, the animation was absolutely flawless and phenomenal. But when it didn't work the way it was supposed to, it was glaring because you're like, whoa, that's not how that's supposed to work. So you kind of, it sets expectations. And I think developers need to figure out where their direction's going and, you know, what they want to achieve with their game. And I also think it's hilarious that we're, you know, comparing a game like the clip that was being used for this stupid comparison that trended was Modern Warfare, which has been patched God knows how many times, to a early test flight of a multiplayer only game. So
free to play as well.
Yeah.
So interesting.
Yeah.
But actually, now that you think about, like I mentioned before, like when we talk about like you normally put these sorts of things in games when you can actually notice something.
Mm-hmm.
Like they probably thought about like at least the horse testicle example. Always going back to horse dicks. I think the idea was like, hey, you're gonna be riding your horse a lot. You're gonna be looking at the backside of your horse a lot. This is just a tiny little detail where people are gonna be staring at their horse's ass that they might notice. So,
yeah.
But yeah, like okay, like I don't know. Tiny little details like, oh yeah, like the facial hair growth on the random enemy guy you kill. No point in doing that.
Yep.
No one's ever gonna notice.
Yep.
So just little things, little details. But...
Yep.
All right, next question. Yeah. All right, so this is one. This comes from the mysterious stranger. Both of you are known to be massive Fallout fans. So I wonder, what's your favorite Fallout game? I'll let you start this one off. I have a feeling that our favorite is the same.
All right.
So I'll let you go for it.
So my favorite Fallout game, I did play through the original ones. I do think the stories in the original ones are phenomenal, but the gameplay just doesn't hold up in this day and age, especially for the original. It is clunky as all hell. But my favorite, as it remains right now, is Fallout New Vegas. And, you know, it's not even close for me. Because, like, I love Fallout 3. Like, Fallout 3 is what got me into the franchise, like a lot of people. And that was thanks to my wife bullying me until I played it. Because I didn't want to play it because it looked janky. And I was like, I don't want to play this. And I ended up playing it because she forced me to. And now it's one of my favorite franchises. But I think Fallout New Vegas is my favorite for the simple reason is the decisions that you had felt like they had end game differences. Like, I understand people vary on how much they think the end game variances are different. But in Fallout 3, no matter what you did, it all kind of accumulated into this one final ending. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, that's fine. But Fallout New Vegas felt more like all your decisions had an impact. How you treated this group of people, how you treated this group of people. It just felt more branching. And it was just, some of the dialogue was phenomenal too. It's just one of the better games for me.
Here, Fallout New Vegas is going to be always the game that I will attribute with me falling in love with the Fallout franchise. My story is actually very different. So my thing was I didn't get a 360 until 2011 when I turned 18. And I had a handful of games to start, and I just got pissed off because I found out how Xbox Live Gold worked. And so I was playing a bunch of single player games trying to make up for it. And one of the games my buddy Grant told me to get, he was like, you should get Fallout 3. And you know what his major selling point was?
What?
There's so much junk on the ground you can just kick. That's not bolted to the ground. There's just junk everywhere. And I was like, Okay.
That quite possibly could be the best sales pitch for Fallout story I've ever heard. Junk you can kick. IGN, 10 out of 10.
But I was like, okay, so I picked up the game and I hated it. I hated Fallout 3.
Mm.
I had not really played like an RPG in a very long time at that point, and I didn't really kind of know how to go around and do things. Like, I mean, like you could say Legend of Zelda is an RPG in the very broadest sense of the word, but not really.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've heard some people make that argument. I'm just like, no. But I played that game, and my thing was I got pissed off because they did the same story bit over and over and over again.
Mhm.
It was, oh yeah, I heard about your dad. I'm not going to tell you anything about him. The information will take me 20 seconds to tell you, but I want you to go risk your life for me for no particular reason. It's like, and they did this like, okay, the first time you were with Moriarty, they did it with him. I was like, all right, fair enough. This guy's a shady guy. I get it. Fine. Then Three Dog, who you're supposed to kind of look up to, does it to you. I'm like,
And that,
like he better be here.
and then ultimately you end up going into the bottom of a garage and your dad's just chilling playing VR chat.
Yeah, it's like, but no. After that, after Rivet City, I gave up. I was like, I'm done with this. I'm not doing this. So I put it away, and I picked up because I was going to college at that point, about a year later, and I was like, okay, I need something to play, and I would go to a used store, and I picked up 2 games. I picked Far Cry 3 and Fallout New Vegas, and at that point, I forgot that Fallout 3 existed. I was like, I'll pick up these 2. Looks like fun, whatever. So I play Far Cry 3, and I'm like, oh my god, this is the best game I've ever played. I'm totally sold on the franchise. And I was like, all right, I don't have anything else to play now. I guess I'll play Fallout New Vegas. And from the very moment that game started, I loved it. I fell in love with the game. I played it through multiple playthroughs, bought DLC, played it, enjoyed the crap out of it. The funny part about the whole scenario at this point is that after I finished it, like the 3rd time, I was like, wait a minute. Obsidian didn't make Fallout 3. Bethesda did. Okay, I'll go back and play that. And then I realized like I'm not going to waste my time doing the single player, so I started doing all the side stuff, and that's where that game really shone for me. But I have a nuanced opinion at this point, because the more I play, the more I believe that while Obsidian's writing is excellent, Fallout 4's gameplay is the best in the series. I'm not even talking gunplay. I'm not even talking about gunplay. I'm talking about the entire game, and like from top to bottom, it is a better game. Its story is kind of weak, but the game itself is excellent.
Let me put it this way. For Fallout 4, I was one of the first 1,000 people who can 100% complete that game on Xbox. Like, I love that game front to back, don't get me wrong. I think the only thing, and it's not even a controversial thing to say, it was just the how they changed the dialogue system is what prevented it from being a quote-unquote perfect game for me. Because, like, as you said, like, gameplay-wise, mechanically, how the quests worked, how, like, just how you interacted with all the systems in the game was great. It was perfect. They streamlined so many things. The whole base building thing was really a really cool precursor to 76. Like, besides Preston Garvey's, endless settlement needs your help nonsense, it was phenomenal, and still probably one of my favorite game launches of all time.
Well, the thing about Fallout 4 that I really liked the most was that the Fallout game series didn't really have an identity that set itself apart gameplay-wise as opposed to Skyrim or Elder Scrolls or anything else in Bethesda's catalog. The base gameplay route that Elder Scrolls had that they just kind of brought into Fallout was you explore, you loot, and then you sell everything or you upgrade your stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's kind of what you did, and that was the only focus. And when they renovated the crafting system, that is where I think the game really took off. Because now it's like, okay, it's no longer explore, loot, and then see what you got. Now it's like explore, loot, craft, break things down, go back and build up your settlement, and then go out and repeat again.
Yeah.
And it was like the settlement building is what set that whole game apart. But even just the crafting system made it unique. Like I don't think they can bring that crafting system to the next Elder Scrolls. I
Yeah.
don't think they.
Actually, to your point, it's been a long time since I played Fallout 4, honestly. But like I remember when it like first playing it, like the gun customization in itself of here's your gun. Here's all the different receivers you can have. Here's all the different attachments you can have. You can put a bayonet on this if you want. You can do this with it. It was just like, whoa, okay. And I'm not going to lie, when I play the older ones, it's a system I really miss.
Like, what was it? Fallout New Vegas, they have a crafting system. I've never used it.
Because it was the most convoluted thing to use. Because in the tutorial, they're like, oh, this is a crafting bench. And you're like, okay.
Cool. I will never come here.
Well, it was like, here's your crafting bench. Okay. And they literally do not explain any other mechanics past that. Like, I figured it out while I was trying to go for the hardcore achievement in Fallout New Vegas. Like, crafting's your best friend when playing on hardcore mode. But until I played that mode, did I ever use it. And if you make an entire system and nobody touches it as a general rule, it's not a good system.
I think Obsidian's writing is excellent, and they make the best RPGs. I will say that definitively. But their gameplay is kind of weak. And if you play Outer Worlds, you definitely feel that.
Yes. I agree with
you. Yeah. And I liked Outer Worlds. It was a really good throwback game to me. But yeah, the writing's excellent, enjoyable. The RPG mechanics alone are amazing. But just the gameplay itself is weak. So like if they were going to make like a perfect Fallout game, I think you and I are definitely of the same mind on this. You get Obsidian to write the story, you get Bethesda Game Studios to make the actual game, and you get Brian Fargo and whoever else from Exile to just overlook the project.
Yeah, I have to admit, like, you know, Outer Worlds aside and everything, I agree with you. Obsidian's writing is phenomenal. And I definitely agree with you that I was like, oh, the Outer Worlds is such a throwback in every term of the word. Because mechanically, I think it's behind Fallout 4. I understand it's a smaller studio and everything else, but Fallout 4 felt way smoother to play and enjoy than Outer Worlds. I did appreciate the fact that melee combat felt really rewarding in Outer Worlds, which is something I still think Fallout kind of struggles with to a degree. But I will say I'm extremely excited to see what the future of Fallout looks like with all the great stuff they've done with 76 and all the lessons they've learned there. I'm really excited to see, you know, what does the future of Fallout look like? I know we're going to be waiting a while because, you know, Elder Scrolls 6 isn't coming out till I'm like 34 probably.
So let's move on. We talked like for it feels like 20 minutes on Fallout. All right. So next one. Embracer Group has bought a ton of new studios a few days ago. What is their end game goal? They seem to be just buying random studios and IP. Submitted to us by Dankman. All right. Let's take a look. Go ahead and get started on this one. Let's look at something up real quick.
Okay, so I don't have a business degree, so I'm not going to pretend like I can like foresee what Embracer Group's trying to do. But it almost feels like a ton of small projects to make a little bit of money. And what I mean by this is they're grabbing IP that is super cheap. You look at things like Time Splitters, you know, they have the Destroy All Humans IP, and, you know, all these other smaller IPs that they've been playing around with and doing games for. They're finding success releasing these smaller games. You know, they're not selling like 7 million, 8 million copies, but they're definitely making their money back and then some. So it kind of feels like their whole game goal is to release like 30 small games a year and make a little bit of money off all of them to then make a sum of money. It's either that, it's just straight up money laundering. It's one of the two, and I'm not sure which.
All right, so for those of us for those people who don't know who Embracer Group is, so this is THQ Nordic. This is a rebranding of this.
Yeah.
So they have a couple of different things here. Just a little bit of background stuff. So back in 2016, this holding group called Nordic Games bought the THQ license, and they had a handful of games that they got from it. Notably, Darksiders is the one I always paid attention to. That was one of my favorite franchises. So I've been following this specifically. So they have 8 different subsidiaries at this point. Amplifier Games, Coffee Stain Holding, Deca Games, Gearbox Entertainment, Koch Media, Saber Interactive, and THQ Nordic. So that's what Embracer Group is now owns at this point.
Oh yeah, I forgot they bought Gearbox. I completely forgot the Embracer Group was like, that Randy Pitchford guy seems like a good investment.
Yeah. So they have a couple different things here. I'm just kind of going through them. I'm trying to see if I can find like an IP listing, just so I have a deep idea here. So the Koch Media one is interesting now because the Koch Media bought a bunch of stuff too. So they bought Deep Silver. Yep. They got Volition out of it. Warhorse Studios, Fish Labs, a couple other things there. They got Flying Hog, which is under Koch Media, Vertigo Games. They're also there. Then they got Raven's Court. The Saber Interactive has Mad Head. Mm-hmm. They have Asper Media, 4A Games. Was it 4A the guys who published Metro original? No, the guys who make Metro.
Yeah, that's the Metro developers.
Yep, so they got Metro now. They got Zen Studios. I'm just scrolling through it for ones that I actually know. Gunfire Games. That's under THQ Nordic. Piranha Bytes. Rainbow Studios. And THQ Nordic France. So they have quite a bit under this grouping. But yeah, I think it's like you said. It's like in terms of like relating it to like a film thing, kind of like Blumhouse, where it's like they're making a cheap game. Like it may not be like super cheap in terms of quality, but they're definitely looking at around a game that just can turn a profit. Mm-hmm. They're not like, if it can get a huge backing, great, but they're not shooting for that. They're just trying to make a game that appeals to a certain group, and that's it.
Yeah, make
its money back and just continue. So it's kind of a weird grouping, man.
I kind of love the hell out of it though, because it's like the AA studios from last generation. Well, sorry, the 360 generation and going forward. Like it's kind of like all the studios that make like interesting and like different games. Like you look at like Warhorse and what they did with Kingdom Come Deliverance. With all the Volition IP, there's rumors that Saints Row is going to make a comeback. And, in a world where GTA 6 isn't coming till 2024, I think another Saints Row game would be phenomenal. We're going to get a Dead Island 2 at some point, apparently. I don't know what that's going to look like.
Dead Island 2's trailer for the reveal was excellent.
Mm-hmm.
Like I still bounce around to that. I still watch it every so often because I love that. That was great.
It actually it looked like it had so much more promise than the past 2 games.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, looked good. But
yeah, I think Embracer Group is just looking, because you never know, right? Because we've seen small IPs blow up, right? Like you look at like Kingdom Come Deliverance is one of the best selling PC games. Like almost 2 years running on Steam, and that was done by a small studio and everything else. So you put out 20 small games a year, 3 of them hit, 30 times the value at what you put into it. That's decent money.
That's kind of the whole, that's the game they're playing. And it's like, and we talked about this before on Multiverse and other places too. Like there are 2 prevailing game models right now, and they're following the film industry in terms of how they're done. Mm-hmm. So there's the one which is more the tentpole model, and that's what you're seeing Sony really focus on more than anybody else. But a lot like Activision does the same thing, if not exclusively at this point. But you see a lot of studios where they're making that big game that costs a lot of money to make, and once it's done, it's going to make a lot of money back, and because it's going to carry the rest of the, not just the studio but the publisher up with it, because it's making so much money,
Right.
and it justifies every other game's existence. And because they may be making one or two games at a time, those games have to hit, or the fate of the studios, like up for grabs at that point.
Absolutely.
So they have to definitely hit. But if they do hit, they can justify them wasting money or doing something else or something that may not hit. Sony's a really good example of that, where they have games that don't do great, but they're justified in terms of their cost and expense by other studios.
Yeah.
Or other people, just other projects.
You're The
But then
Last
on
of
the
Us.
flip side, go ahead. Go ahead, man.
So an example like The Last of Us Part 2 and God of War, big sellers, uplift games like Concrete Genie, Dreams, etc. Basically.
But then on the flip side, you got other things where it's like, and this is what Embracer Group is doing, where they're just like, all right, everyone gets a budget of $5 million. Like, go, go, go. Right. And just hopefully one of them will make 20 million back.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, all right, cool. You justified your existence in 3 other games. Good job. And so that's what they're hoping for. At least one of them hits.
Yeah.
But also, like, if they don't hit, you made your money back, you're good.
Yeah.
We get to try new things. So like I said, it's a similar model to like what the horror industry does. It's cheaper. If it hits, great. If it doesn't hit, you made your money back.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, is if you have a $5 million budget and you only make $4 million back, you're only short $1 million. You make a $500 million game and you only make $200 million, you're in trouble by any stretch of the imagination.
Or like here's a random thing for you. Like, do you know what the most I think it's the highest, the most profitable comic book movie of all time is?
What?
Just guess. Guess first.
No idea. The Dark Knight?
Nope. Joker.
Really?
Yep. Joker's budget was actually pretty low. I'll pull it up for you. Let's see. Budget. Yeah, they made Joker for about $55 million.
Wow. And they made $1 billion on that, right?
I think so. Let me just double check that real quick. I don't want to tell you something wrong. But like Avengers Endgame cost like $356 million to make.
Yeah.
So, but at the same time, they broke $2 billion, but the cost is still pretty high. Let me see. Joker movie. It's only for gross sales. Yeah, $1.03 billion.
Damn.
And it's only $55 million to make it. So it's the most profitable by percentage.
Damn. I need that kind of profitability in my companies.
But yeah, like, hey, you spend a lot less money. Like, that's what companies really want to see more than anything else. They want to see that their investment yielded results.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Plugging right along. Next question. This is going back to the ever-recurring topic. There's been some movement over at Activision Blizzard. The head of the studio stepped down, and now Ibarra and someone else are co-heads of Activision, or Blizzard specifically. Do you think this is enough from the unofficial third member, Mr. Inferno?
Is it enough? No. Not even by a long shot. You can't fire one person and change an entire culture, because, Activision Blizzard is 9,000 plus employees. If you think it was one person poisoning the well, then you're daft. And, we've seen a second lawsuit levied by investors against Activision Blizzard, because this kind of information, to hide it away the way they did, is, quote unquote bad faith, and et cetera, et cetera. And, as much as I want to say things are going to change at Activision Blizzard, and I think splitting Brack's role into towards two people will help, because I sometimes wonder if part of Blizzard's problem is they had, too much responsibility falling on one person, so people were just ignoring certain aspects of their job. I'm definitely not trying to justify the behavior that happened there, but I've worked in work environments where managers are overloaded and can't keep a proper eye on what happens to staff. I definitely don't think that's the case here, but I think by splitting management roles into multi-person roles, it gives the company more depth. So if, say, someone has an issue but they don't feel comfortable talking to Ybarra, they can talk to O'Neill instead. It just gives employees more options. So I think that's a smart move. But I don't see anything changing unless Kotick goes, honestly. Until Kotick goes and all the little ghoulies that he brought with him go, nothing's really changing.
I'm going to say this because I think it's important. So first off, I'll say, is it enough? No. I still think, you can't you can't just chop down the tree and leave the trunk. It's gonna grow back. That's how it works. You got to cut down everybody, and Kodak's got to go. That's really, it has to happen before anything. Because everyone else is more just window dressing.
Yeah.
So I'm iffy on that. Now, my major thing about it is, I talked about this last week, and I'm going to just highlight it again. I find it very concerning that individuals have shown up in this position, said nothing about it publicly, or made any real concessions to change anything when they definitely knew about it.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're going to reaping benefits. So we talked about, I know we talked about last week, we talked about how people will make, mea culpas, what's the early word? They'll virtue signal, where they will take advantage of a situation and preach how important things are and do nothing about it.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically, I talked about Rod Ferguson and Mike Ybarra, where Rod Ferguson showed up at Blizzard back in, I want to say February 2020. But I give him a pass because about a month later, they're going straight into COVID. So he may not have witnessed anything. But Mike Ybarra, I definitely raised an eyebrow towards, because he got picked up October of 2019. He lives on the West Coast, where most of these places are. I have a hard time believing he didn't hear about any of this stuff or see it. I have a very hard time believing that. Now, is he culpable? I'd say no, because it's okay, you didn't do anything, and you weren't a part of the regime that was facilitating this necessarily. But at the same time, you didn't do anything. You didn't as soon as you heard about it, you didn't quit your job and expose it. You didn't make any real effort that we could see to change the culture.
See,
because it didn't happen until now.
Well, and see, this is the thing, is as you said, I've seen mixed reactions to how, there was mixed reactions from Blizzard itself about this situation. Brack wrote that I'm going to say it was PR friendly, but it felt more meaningful than anything they had put out prior. And then you had, Townsend's remarks, which were, oh boy, this isn't the Bush administration. You can't do that anymore. But the thing is Ybarra was quiet through this whole thing.
Yeah.
He didn't say a word, and he didn't publicly come out with anything until he took over this job role and everything else. At least the only thing I saw Rod Ferguson say about was that he participated in the walkouts and supported the walkouts.
Ybarra did the same thing. He's it's a pleasure to see all these people out here, or something that. That was the only comment he actually made about it.
Yeah.
And I'm
Like it, and like if he had gone completely media dark through the whole thing, I'd understand. PR, media dark, don't use your socials, blah 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 blah. I've seen it in situations in places I've worked. But the thing is this guy was like tweeting about his setup, talking games with people and everything else, like nothing was happening at all. And then that is just, it's so many red flags to me that, and I just don't honestly believe that you could be part of Blizzard and not know what's going on.
Because like I've met Mike Ibarra. There's pictures of me and him together, and like we're not like friends at all. We don't even really talk like at all. But like I've met the guy, so like I've seen him. I've seen him at least, and I just don't. I have a sneaking suspicion that there are people who are taking advantage of the situation, and that's why they didn't say anything. Because they saw that this is what was going to happen. Mm-hmm. That eventually, oh yeah, this is going to come out, and then heads are going to roll, and I'm the newest person here, so I'm not going to get in trouble. So I'm just going to sit and wait until everyone else gets busted, and then I'll profit. Or like the Adam Sandler Uncut Gems, this is how I win. Like, because now look, he's only been there since October 2019, and now he's co-head of the company. He's just like, what? Like, that's unbelievable. Like, in such a short amount of time you've been with Blizzard, you're already in charge.
Well, and see, I started reading into the history of Blizzard because like I followed Blizzard. I play all their games and everything else, right? I love Blizzard as, a video game manufacturer. And I started reading some of the stuff, and like when Activision took over Blizzard, there was a bunch of people that were basically provided lucrative retirement deals to leave the company, and basically Activision put in its own set of people into management that they believed would be definitive good leadership. And some of these people have been outed as abusers, and these are part of Kotick's personal circle. And not to mention that, Bobby Kotick is the, loser on the end of a sexual harassment lawsuit before that he paid out in 2010 for sexually harassing a private jet stewardess that, I'm not going to say worked for him, but worked for however that works. So, to sit there and be like, oh, well, it's a cultural thing. What Brack was, and whether, like, there's no way Brack was, innocent. But what Brack was we're going to drop someone to the wolves and hope they'll back off. Because Activision Blizzard wants nothing more than for people to forget about this as quickly as possible.
Especially starting the media blitz for Call of Duty any day now.
Yep.
We talked about this before. Like the latest they've ever started a Call of Duty campaign is like late August.
Yep.
Yeah, if this is still in the news, it's not gonna look good.
Well, the last thing that Activision wants is to launch a Call of Duty trailer and have a bunch of people in the comments being like, "What about the girl who killed herself?" Or what about these rape allegations? Like, they don't want that in the comment section. And the reason I say they don't want it in the comment section is because it becomes more common knowledge. Because that's when your casuals are looking through things and paying attention and reading more. Like, my parents aren't involved in video games barely at all. My mom plays a handful of games. And my dad was talking to me about Blizzard Activision because Blizzard Activision's pitched, if you're buying a mid-range stock portfolio, Activision Blizzard stocks are actually is actually pushed as a good stock to purchase. So he actually had investments in Activision Blizzard, which he sold. And just the reach that this story has reached, BBC covering it, big news publications covering it. It's kind of wild. And deservedly so, honestly.
My whole thing is, I think, from a sense of morality, my biggest issue is there are the people who did the things that are the things that are wrong, and yes, they're bad, but on the same level, like a 75% bad are people profiting off of those.
Yeah.
Where it's like you could have said something that could have stopped this a lot sooner. And I don't mean to pick on Mikey Barra specifically. I mean, I don't know Jen O'Neill or anyone else at this point. I don't know anything about them, but like I know Mikey Barra. Okay, yeah, I have a hard time believing that he didn't know anything and really tried to stop everything from behind the scenes or anything like that. And that he just wasn't quiet and then profited off of it. Where it's like, is it like it's the moral question of like, if you know something bad is going on and you don't do anything to stop it, are you culpable?
Yeah.
And I asked the same question.
And you know, questions get raised. Like a perfect example, someone brought this to my attention. You know, this lawsuit really puts a lot of light to. You look at someone like Jeff Kaplan leaving. Remember, he left a few months ago, and everyone was like, "Oh my God, why would Jeff Kaplan leave? He's been at Blizzard forever. What could possibly be going on?" And now, you know, everyone's kind of looking at Jeff Kaplan like, was it you were sick of seeing this stuff go on? Or were you, you know, guilty of something?
Are you one of the guys?
Yeah. So, and it kind of puts everyone in that kind of boat. And the thing is I understand developers at the base level just can't quit their jobs. I get it. I've worked for companies that are garbage, and it's like, this is my paycheck. There's nothing I can do about this. But people like Mike Ybarra, Rod Ferguson, everything else, they could quit tomorrow and they can quit tomorrow and have 30 job offers on the table.
Yeah. Like they're untouchable in that regard. Like it is, they have that security.
Yeah.
They could do it if they wanted to.
Like every single person that's named in Activision Blizzard could walk out tomorrow and get jobs. Like I do not see a world where Brack isn't working for another studio within the next couple of months. Like, it is what it is. And like, you know, Blizzard was good. They fired the HR director who was in the Cosby Room photo because it's nothing more embarrassing than one of your lead HR people being in that photo. But you know, that indie studio that started with one of those guys as a creative director, everyone's looking at them right now like, what's going on with this guy? Like, you know, because we talk about how culture affects everything, and we naturally assume this culture is only in AAA games, but if abusers go on to make their own studios, then what?
That defines their culture.
Yep.
So, yeah, it's a weird scenario, man. And like I said, we'll talk about it as long as it keeps coming up. As long as you guys still want us to talk about it, we'll talk about it. But
yeah.
All right. And I believe this is our last question for at least out of the main questions. All right. PlayStation dropped the bag of info and ran. Run emoji, run emoji, run emoji. PS subscribers are down by 1 million, and PlayStation monthly users is down by 10 million. PlayStation's the Titanic, and Game Pass is the iceberg. Brought to you by Next Gen 720 Vintage 2013.
Okay, first of all, whoever submitted that question, I'm going to kick you in the shin. Second of all, I wasn't aware of these numbers. I must have missed these numbers.
I'll pull it for you if you want.
Yeah, if you don't mind, because like from what I remember reading from that Jim Ryan GamesIndustry.biz article, all their attach rates and everything else were up by double digits, not downwards. They said they had trending services upwards and everything else in his interview when they announced the 10 million PlayStation 5s, but I'm guessing this is from their financial earnings call, I'm guessing, versus a interview, I'm guessing.
So this one comes from, all right, so a little bit of business stuff. So normally when you have a press briefing, That is your opportunity to spin any news that you have.
Right.
That's how you set the tone for anything else that comes out. So normally, if you're watching stock prices, this is normally the time where stocks start going up or they start going down in anticipation of the quarter one news to actually come out, or quarter two, or whatever, depending on their financial year. Sony normally does things a little bit later than other ones. Microsoft, I believe, dropped theirs in June, I would say, because the way their quarters drop is a little different than usual. Well, it's actually Sony's quarter is a little different than American companies, so it's kind of like quarter two ends, or technically financial year 2022 ends in end of June, or sorry, 21 ended in June. So Microsoft dropped their news being in July roughly. Sony's is a little bit different, so all of their stuff started dropping recently.
Okay.
So quarter one, whatever, you guys don't care about that. So there is a ton of news about this. So they dropped a ton of their numbers. So I'm trying to see if I can find something that is a little more open. So the major difference is that they had a loss of 1.3 million subscribers compared to last quarter. So for them, meaning that where they had, I think it was, that's right. No, oh, I hate when articles write pieces about financial numbers, because them being in tables makes this so much easier to understand, and they just add tiny, like, worthless bits of information into it. I'm trying to find a better one here. I was looking at Push Square because they always like to spin things. So there we go. So yeah, so the company's quarter one financial results were published on this just earlier, which cover the 3 months ended June 30th. Sony reported that a total PlayStation Plus subscribers of 46.3 million is up 1.3 million year on year, but down over a million compared to the two most recent quarters. Meaning that this time last year, they're up than what they used to be, but now they're down over the last two quarters.
Gotcha.
Meaning that they saw a lot of decline the last two quarters, so over the holiday for some reason. Interesting piece of information there. So that is kind of strange. The other number that came out of this was they talked about their monthly users. These are people who are not subscribed to PlayStation Plus. These are people who are just playing on anything PlayStation. If I recall correctly, because I got to find the official one, it was like 120 million last month, or 2 months ago, and now it's 110. So they lost 10 million active subscribers, or active users. So you look surprised, sir. Why do you look surprised?
I look surprised. The reason I look surprised is I'm genuinely confused on what would drive them backwards in this. Like, I'm definitely not going to hop on the Titanic iceberg nonsense or anything like that. But I'm curious because PlayStation's been releasing games. They've, PlayStation Plus offerings, except for this past month, haven't been bad. There's like a consistent flow of game, like, Ratchet and Clank, everything else. Like, I'm really genuinely confused. Unless people are, finally getting fed up with not being able to find a PlayStation, so they're trading in their PS4s and grabbing Xboxes when they can, just to get something next gen. But I don't think it would be 10 million, because then thered be 10 million Xboxes, right? Like, what's going... And they're definitely not building PCs, because no one can find a graphics card for under $3,000.
Things, honestly. Like I said, here's my thing. I normally look at like I follow the Occam's razor approach to this, where it's like the easiest answer is probably the right answer.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing to play. What do you got? Like the last thing they had was in June, right? And that was Ratchet and Clank.
Yeah.
That thing like broke 1 million units, right?
Yeah.
But after that, July, it dropped. There's nothing else to play.
Yeah, when you think about it, that's 10 million PlayStation 5s on the market, so 10% of your user base bought Ratchet and Clank, 6% of your user base bought Returnal, and then once again, these are just ballparking numbers, of course. So I could see why maybe some people wouldn't be as engaged with their consoles, and I wonder too because we kind of COVID restrictions were definitely relaxing around. So I wonder how many people that were playing, free to play games on their PS4 or something aren't logging in as much because they're back going out with their friends every night and stuff like that. I wonder how much that comes into play.
Could be. It is. That was peak summer month right there.
Yeah,
July specifically. That's peak summer. You got holidays. You have things to do. Like I would not be surprised if that was the major reason. I know that's one of the reasons that they stated that their numbers are down as opposed to last year. It's like, oh, well, last year, COVID restrictions, like it allowed people to like stay inside and play more. So that's why our numbers are going down. We're just readjusting because of that.
yep.
But like at the same time, like when we see Xbox do something similar there.
Well, actually, we don't have a month because Xbox doesn't give us official like numbers. They give us percentages. Their services was down by 3%, and they said that was mainly root caused by the lack of third-party AAA games releasing, and that the reason it was only 3% was because of great growth with Game Pass and first-party games. So I'm wondering if Xbox suffered a similar slump. It's just with how Xbox shares their numbers, you wouldn't hear about that slump. Whereas with how PlayStation shares numbers, you're going to see that slump.
Yep, and because they don't have anything to combat that. Like where Xbox is dealing with more of a growth market because they're actually offering something that you can't get anywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's going to allow them to like cover up their numbers. It's a good point. And like where Sony, they're just doing the traditional market and they're not doing anything else right now. Like if for example, if they were talking about like hardware sales being down, they could cover it up by saying, "Oh well, PlayStation VR 2 is out, and we can kind of boost our numbers up with that somehow, being creative." But they're not doing anything like that right now, so they can't really do that. That's a good point. Hadn't thought about that.
Mm-hmm.
So, numbers are weird.
Well,
that's my official stance.
Yeah, well, the thing is it's all in how you present your numbers, right? So say you're down 3%. If you say, well, we made $358 million this year. Yeah, it's 3% down from what you made last year. But when you say 357 million, people are going to lock onto that. Whereas if you want to say you're growing a lot, but you don't have the numbers to kind of justify it, you'd use percentages, right? Oh, we're up 12% this year. Ooh, 12%. That's a nice chunky number. 12% increase, 2 units could make a 12% increase, whatever the argument may be. It's all in how you present your numbers to your investors, and different companies do it completely differently.
Or you just choose not to answer. Like, that's kind of what they did with Andrew Ryan. I was like, just don't mention it. Doesn't matter. So, yep, numbers you can get creative with numbers. So, all right, Nick, what's our main topic tonight? What are we talking about?
Well, our main topic tonight is the age-old holiday question. We've got a bunch of games competing.
What's the difference between an Xbox and a PlayStation?
No.
Is that it?
No, God, no.
What's a Series X versus a Series S?
No.
I don't know the difference between letters or colors.
Oh, my God.
Or size.
There's definitely a size problem in the gaming community, but that's another whole conversation in itself. So we've got a couple of big competitors this holiday season for mindshare, so to speak. We've got big multiplayer games, like typically holiday season, Call of Duty, but this year it's shaking up a little differently. We don't have Call of Duty yet, and I don't I'm not going to be one to say that it's still guaranteed to come because we haven't heard anything about it. And with the current state of Activision's PR, if there was ever a year to delay Call of Duty, this would be the year to delay Call of Duty. But we do have two very hungry competitors that are coming to market this holiday season, and that is Halo Infinite and Battlefield 2042. And now, the reason I say they're hungry competitors is these are both games that have come off positive previews and test flighting, where people have said, wow, they're really hitting what the core fan base wants, but also enticing new players. So what do we think is going to dominate this holiday season? Is it going to be Halo Infinite? Is it going to be Battlefield? Well, what do you think? Where's your time going to be spent this holiday season?
I think we should break it down like point by point here.
Mhm.
Like, all right, let's look at Microsoft first. So let's look at Halo. So what's Halo doing this year? So first off, they have a campaign, and that is going to be included in Game Pass. And we know that for a fact. That's what they're doing. We don't have a hard release date yet, so they're still kind of flexible. We know it's going to be this year. That's really as far as we know. We know it'll be this year, but we don't have anything more specific than that.
Mhm.
Their multiplayer is going to go free to play, which is the biggest wild card thing here.
Mhm.
I think that is it could be a chance for exponential growth of that franchise, specifically because it's free.
Mhm.
I think that's important to note, at least when talking about Halo. This is the first game from them in 6 years, at least in terms of a mainline game, and not some spin-off thing. So it's been a good long time since we've had Halo. And they've gone back to the shop, they fixed things up, like they have they have positive public perception
Mhm.
for them. So I think they have a good chance to do something significant here. Now, I think something that's worth noting is with with EA, they're going the exact opposite route.
Mhm.
They're going, all right, high barrier of entry as opposed to Game Pass. They're not launching in Game Pass. They're charging $70 for the next gen versions of this game. And they're going multiplayer only.
Mhm.
But it looks like they're hitting that quality threshold and they're adding value to it and from the multiplayer perspective.
Mhm.
But they're doing a high barrier of entry while Halo's doing a low barrier of entry. So I think that's worth noting as well. In Call of Duty, we just have no idea what Call of Duty is doing right now. Like this, I think it's safe to assume if we're going from the perspective that it is launching this year, whose turn is it? Is it Sledgehammer's turn? I think that's right.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, it's
Treyarch?
Sledgehammer's turn. No, Treyarch went last year.
Oh, right.
They went
Cold War.
they did Black Ops,
Right.
and prior to that they had Modern Warfare. So that was Infinity Ward. So yeah, it's Sledgehammer's turn, and we know this is not going great. That's the worst kept secret right now. They have everybody working on Call of Duty right now over at Activision. So depending on what that is, assuming this is a standard Call of Duty release where they have their version of zombies for whatever it is that year, single player and multiplayer, just a standard fare. I don't know about that. I would probably put Halo on top of the three of them, with the exception of maybe Warzone, because they have that free to play and the lowest barrier of entry compared to all three.
Mhm. Well, I think Halo Infinite versus Battlefield, and like I'm gonna leave Call of Duty out of it for now because like definitively like it has to launch because it's Call of Duty, and I think Activision is cocky enough that they know their player base will buy it no matter what, and they can fix it later. They did it with Cold War, for God's sakes. That game was broken to the teeth, at launch, and they spent 2 months fixing it, but no one really seemed to have a problem with it. It was on MPD, #1 spot for God knows how long, and everything else. But I think the differences between Battlefield and Halo Infinite is what makes it so interesting. And what I mean by that is, we have, as you said, you have Battlefield, which is trying to give you that premium experience. You're talking like the Battlefield Portal, this high-end quality that they're trying to shoot for and everything else. And then you have Halo Infinite, on the other hand, where it's like, if you want to play the full game, it's in Game Pass, and the multiplayer is free to play. So you're likely going to have your biggest entry point, most people hopping into Halo at launch than you've ever had before. And there's no doubt in my mind, it's just, can Halo Infinite hook players in?
I think story-wise for Halo, I don't know what they're doing necessarily. I'm not a big Halo guy as it is. Yeah, I know we're back on an actual Halo ring, and I understand that. And Atriox is supposed to be in here somewhere. But I think for them, like, they need a trailer, like, now. But, like, a big villain reveal kind of thing. Did you ever play Halo Wars 2?
Yes.
I don't know. All right. Like, the scene where, like, Atriox is just introduced, and he's just destroying Spartans and ODST, like, with his bare hands. I was like, that is the baddest, like, the biggest, most badass moment I've ever seen in all of Halo. I was like, that is so cool. He is a great villain.
Yep.
And he needs that kind of moment for everyone to see, like, immediately. If it's in a trailer, even better. But that needs to be something that we all see so we can get going.
Yeah.
Because that's the hardest point right now, is they don't really have a narrative hook where most people can really get on board. It's like, all right, Cortana's back. Cool. We're going after Cortana. Want a Halo ring again. What now?
Yeah, I think that's the thing, is like, we had that very clunky looking gameplay trailer that they put out that was supposed to show off the campaign, that made a lot of people question things. They delayed the game. The multiplayer looks phenomenal. Plays phenomenal. From all the things we've seen, all our friends that got to play it, I hate you, Sam. I just want you to know that. But the thing is like, the multiplayer I wasn't worried about. I knew the multiplayer was going to be good, because the multiplayer in Halo 5 was really good. It was the story stuff that I'm worried about. I was worried about the campaign. And the game looks infinitely better and runs smooth and everything else, but I'm still want to know how they're going to nail this story beat. And I definitely agree with you. They need to have a big, I'm not going to say like a blowout. I don't want them to do like 30 minutes of campaign gameplay or something. Even a 3-minute trailer to just kind of pull me in with some plot points would get me more on board.
Points. I don't even care about that. Just show me Atriox being a badass villain. That's all I want to see. Like, because I think that's where Halo normally fails. They don't do good villains.
Yep.
Like when you have someone who's interesting, then they become a good guy, and it's like, oh, okay, fine. But they don't have like a good, like, real villain of the franchise, and they need to really establish that.
Yeah.
Like, just give us someone.
Yeah. Because Atriox was the best villain in the Halo universe, and he was in the goddamn RTS spin-off game.
Yep.
And I know some people, like, I've seen some people going, well, Battlefield 2042 can't succeed because it doesn't have the campaign. I don't know anybody that bought Battlefield for the campaign. Those campaigns were so terrible. And
well, I'm not gonna say that. Like, Battlefield, I liked Battlefield 4's campaign enough, but everything after that was
all the Battlefield campaigns, at least for 3 and 4, just felt like they wanted you to feel like it was Modern Warfare, and they just failed to do that.
Yep.
Like,
I'd say that.
I think the biggest problem I had with Battlefield is it spent so much time trying to be Call of Duty. And that's not why I buy Battlefield. And that's why I like the idea of Battlefield 2042. Because, like, I'm day one on all of these except Call of Duty. Like day one on Halo Infinite, day one on Battlefield 2042, especially Battlefield, because that multiplayer playground that they're teasing with the weather and the massive maps and all the players, man, that is, I don't care, it's
Oh,
$70. They're showing me $70 of worthwhile content. I'm going to play that game for hundreds of hours.
mm-hmm.
No problem.
Yep. I actually already have it downloaded. Well, not downloaded. I've already pre-ordered. I actually paid the money. I like that's my big thing. I hate pre-ordering games with like a card and they take the money out later. I'll go and buy a gift card just so the money is out of my account already and put on the game. Like I hate getting something out later. So
Yep. No, I'm going to be doing the review for Battlefield 2042, so I'm excited. I'm excited to get my hands on it. The sooner the better. And Halo Infinite's going to be interesting. And I think it's going to be, I'm calling it now, there's going to be a lot of stupid articles about comparing these two games because one's on the Game Pass model and one's on the $70 game model, and they're likely going to launch semi close together. So we're going to see comparisons on how do they compete on NPD? How do they do this? How do they do that? And, you know, is Halo less quality because you get it for free? And et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm already predicting that dumb stuff is going to start rolling out October, November timeframe.
yeah.
But I don't know. I think this holiday season looks really exciting. And, honestly, if Halo Infinite and Battlefield steal 10% of Call of Duty's player base, I'm happy.
Yeah. No, I think they have a really good opportunity to really take that market. It's kind of like 2016, where EA alone had a good chance because they had Titanfall, it's also Titanfall 2, and they had Battlefield.
Yep.
Like that was a great opportunity. But now you got two drastically different games, but also not only different games but different models to siphon people away.
Yep.
So now let's play devil's advocate for a minute. How does Call of Duty win this?
How does Call of Duty win this?
Yeah.
Release hit some beats that people are looking forward to. Like, you really gotta showcase you're doing something interesting with the multiplayer and everything else, because the thing is like, a lot of people are hooked into Warzone. I don't necessarily believe people are hooked still on Black Ops Cold War. Like, I wholeheartedly think Call of Duty's numbers would be significantly down if Warzone didn't exist.
Mm. Yeah, I think you're right, at least in terms of what people are hooked into. Because like I only know like 3 people who still play Call of Duty regularly, and it's all Warzone. Yep. They don't really play the multiplayer like at all for Cold War. So I think if I were in Call of Duty's position, if I were in that space, and I were trying to figure out how to win, it would be leverage the chance that you have with both models, where you can fight Halo on the free-to-play side by offering more unique items in battle passes and such.
Mm-hmm.
You could fight Halo Infinite off with that, because you don't have to really work competing with the single-player side of things. It's the multiplayer exclusively that you have to fight against.
Absolutely.
But if you're going down that route, that's all you have to really focus on for them. Because, like, okay, let's say for a minute, like, okay, I say you have $10 to get a battle pass, and you can either get Halo Infinite or you can get Call of Duty. And Halo Infinite's just offering more sci-fi stuff and new Halo armors and stuff like that. But like Call of Duty is like, hey, you want to play as John McClane from Die Hard?
Yeah.
I mean, they actually have already done that, but it's just an example.
Yeah,
So,
you're talking flexing how big of a AAA experience we are. Like, Call of Duty at this point is just dick flexing for how much bigger they are than everybody else and how much money they can bring in to do these events. Yeah, I think Call of Duty's got to hit something different. They can't just Sledgehammer can't roll out Call of Duty World War 2.2. Like, that can't happen. And I think one of the things that makes me, I'm not going to say concerned for Call of Duty because I really don't care, but Sledgehammer traditionally has had the poorest received games of the three, typically. Because Advanced Warfare, everyone said it went too sci-fi and everything else, and then Infinite Warfare was even worse. But Advanced Warfare was, everyone was like, whoa, let's put the brakes on this a bit. And then World War II, everyone's like, this is good, but it's just another World War II shooter.
World War II was fun strictly just because it was like, oh, look, it's not the future. Thank you. That's all we've been asking for.
Yeah, it was the return of boots on the ground was the only reason people jumped on that game as much as they did.
Yep.
And I'm sorry, boots on the ground Call of Duty is boring as hell. I should write an article about that.
My thing is, I think Call of Duty, like, if I were reinventing Call of Duty, I would make it a parkour franchise.
Like
in terms of being a shooter. Well, no, not like Titanfall, but I mean more like, okay, by boots on the ground, like, you could do a limited wall run like Prince of Persia style, where it's like, all right, you see an opportunity, like you're like, yeah, like 3 steps, and then you fall off, like, but you're not getting like an extra like, oh yeah, here's a rocket boot jump, or like, oh yeah, you could slide under something, or you can like mantle over a hedge or something and like not lose a beat and focus on momentum. I think that would work for Call of Duty, but no further than that. No crazy jumps, no weird advanced outerwear armor. Like, I don't need any of that. But I think that's where they would have their identity if they actually went down that route. But
so kind of hybridize it where it's still boots on the ground, but it's not as limited. Because I think my biggest problem with Call of Duty, and I know they tried to do it a little bit, I think Modern Warfare did it the best, like 2019's Modern Warfare, but Call of Duty maps feel like where Call of Duty has aged the least, because it's always, all their maps are 3-lane maps. And you're just like, oh boy, here's a 3-lane map in another ruined city. Woo! And there's going to be a guy who's going to sit on the one side of the map with a sniper in the back corner. Woo! It's incredibly and increasingly predictable. And I think that's why Battlefield's always been so appealing to me, is because, yes, you're going to have your sniper in the back of the map, but there's so many other factors that deviate from that your experience isn't ruled by the sniper camping in the back corner.
Exactly. That's right. But no, I think that's a good point to bring up. Like, it's more of it's a free-for-all experience that I think that only Battlefield can provide. And that's why I think there's no point even trying to compete in terms of those game types anymore. Where like we had those moments where like Battlefield was trying to be Call of Duty, and Call of Duty was trying to be a little bit like Battlefield. And they had those moments for a bit, and I think they've realized that it's not worth it.
No.
Like, you may be able to experiment on occasion, but that's really about it.
Yeah.
So, anyway. Anything else about this one we're going to talk about before we start wrapping things up?
Nope. Let's get to that poll.
All right. So, this week, for questions, really short question. Who do you think will win the coveted top shooter this year? Option A, Halo, the Ancient King returns. B, Call of Duty, the King of the Hill. Or C, Battlefield, the rightful king. We'll be posting this one up as soon as this show goes live on our Twitter account, Cheat Code Radio. So go and check us out there. And subscribe for more fun content like this.
Absolutely. And also the answer to that poll is D, Quake, whenever that's remade and comes out.
Yep.
But another great show, great conversations. Got to talk about Fallout, got to talk about Battlefield and Halo, got to talk a bunch of stuff. So great time as always. So Ivan, if people wanted to stalk you on social media, where could they find you?
I don't know why they bother, but if they wanted to, They can find me on Twitter at Multiverse Show. They can find me on pretty much everything else at Anchorman V2. If you are interested in random Twitch gameplay, which we normally use for this show, it's at multiverse_show on Twitch. And that's it. That's all you can find me.
Absolutely. And I'm Nicholas Downie. You can find me on Twitter at Nicholas_Downie. You can find my other podcast, The Gaming Perspective, on The Gaming Perspective on YouTube. And I encourage you to check out Cheat Code Radio. And we appreciate each and every one of you that tunes into us, whether you tune in via YouTube or via MP3 uploads. We're trying something a little bit different this week to get the MP3 upload to you guys faster, hoping for same-day delivery going forward. So we appreciate all of you. You can find us on Spotify, and we're in process for Apple iTunes, Google Podcasts, RSS, etc., etc. So that wraps us up here, and we will see you guys next week as we talk about a host of new things. No doubt some Back for Blood and everything else. So until then, stay well, stay healthy, and have fun.
See you guys.